I never shared with my son the fact that I earned $40,000 each month, even as he watched me lead a modest existence. One evening, he asked me to join him for dinner with his wife's parents, who had flown in from overseas. I chose to act like a struggling, innocent parent to observe how they'd handle someone without means. But from the instant I entered that restaurant, the evening took a dramatic turn. What unfolded left my daughter-in-law and her family shattered in ways they couldn't have foreseen. And believe me, they had it coming. Let me walk you through how it all built up. Allow me to reveal my true identity. Because my son Daniel, now 35, had no idea about his mother's real life. To him, I'd always been the lady who headed out early to work, returned exhausted at dusk, prepared meals from whatever was on hand. Just a regular worker, perhaps an assistant, nothing remarkable. And I never set him straight. I kept silent about my $40,000 monthly income, about my role as a top executive in a global company for nearly 2 decades, overseeing multi-million-dollar deals and shaping outcomes for countless employees. Why reveal it? Wealth wasn't a badge I wore proudly. I came from a time when self-respect was internal and quiet strength outweighed empty boasts. So, I protected my secret. I stayed in the same unassuming apartment for ages. I carried the same battered leather purse until it fell apart. I shopped for outfits at budget outlets, ate home-cooked food, squirreled away every penny, invested wisely, and grew wealthy without fanfare. Real influence doesn't boast. It watches. And I was watching intently when Daniel phoned me that Tuesday afternoon. His tone was off, edgy, like when he was young and in trouble. "Mom, I have a request. Emily's folks are here from abroad. It's their first visit. They want to meet you. We're dining out Saturday at a spot downtown. Please join us." His words unsettled me. It wasn't a casual invite from a loving child. It felt like a plea to avoid humiliation, to blend in, to not stand out awkwardly. "Have you mentioned anything about me?" I inquired evenly. A pause followed. Then Daniel mumbled, "I said you have an office job, live by yourself, keep things basic, don't own much." There it was, the term basic, as if my whole existence boiled down to that pitiful word, as if I were an issue he had to excuse. I inhaled deeply. "Fine, Daniel, I'll attend." I ended the call and surveyed my cozy living room. Worn but comfy seats, plain walls without fancy decor, a compact TV, nothing flashy. Right then, I resolved that if my son viewed me as destitute, and if his in-laws arrived primed to critique, I'd deliver precisely what they anticipated. I'd pose as impoverished, gullible, and needy. A parent scraping by. I yearned to experience directly how they'd regard a have-not. I aimed to unmask their genuine selves, suspecting Emily and her kin valued people by their wealth. And my gut rarely errs. Saturday came. I picked my shabbiest attire. A drab, baggy, creased gray frock, like something from a second-hand shop. Scuffed old flats, 0 accessories, not even a timepiece. I snatched a tattered cloth satchel, tied my hair in a sloppy knot, and checked the reflection. I appeared defeated by hardship. Unremarkable. Ideal. I hailed a cab and provided the location. An upscale eatery in the city's posh district, where menus omit costs, and each place setting exceeds most folks' paychecks. As we rode, a peculiar blend stirred inside me. Excitement and sorrow. Excitement from sensing a revelation ahead. Sorrow from hoping against hope that I'd misjudged them, that they'd show warmth, overlook the frayed garb. But my seasoned side, forged over 40 years amid business predators, knew precisely what lay in store. The cab halted outside the venue. Soft glows, a gloved attendant, refined patrons arriving. I settled the fare, alighted, inhaled sharply, crossed the entry, and spotted them. Daniel stood by a lengthy table near the glass panes. He sported a sharp navy suit, crisp shirt, polished loafers. He seemed uneasy. Next to him stood Emily, my daughter-in-law, in a sleek ivory gown with metallic trim, stilettos, her sleek locks cascading down. She appeared flawless as ever, yet her gaze avoided mine. She stared at the door with a strained, nearly ashamed look. Then I noticed them, Emily's parents, already ensconced like monarchs. The mom, Margaret, in a snug jade gown sparkling with beads, gems adorning her throat, arms, digits. Her raven tresses in a polished chignon. She possessed that icy, strategic allure that daunts. Beside her, Richard, her spouse, in a flawless charcoal ensemble, a massive wristwatch, stern visage. They resembled figures from a high society glossy. I approached tentatively, with hesitant strides, as if intimidated. Daniel spotted me first, his expression shifted. His gaze widened, sweeping over me. I saw him gulp. Mom, you made it. His words carried discomfort. Naturally, dear, I'm here. I offered a shy grin, the kind from someone enused to grandeur. Emily pecked my cheek briskly, Chili wrote. Mother-in-law, good to see you. Her glance betrayed otherwise. She presented me to her parents in an odd, almost regretful manner. Dad, Mom, meet Daniel's mom. Margaret glanced up, appraised me, and in that second I read it all. The verdict, the scorn, the letdown. Her scrutiny hit my rumpled frock, battered shoes, shabby bag. She stayed mute initially, then proffered a palm. Cool, brief limp. A pleasure. Richard mirrored. Feeble grip, phony beam, enchanted. I settled in the seat at the table's far end, distant from them, like a lesser invitee. Nobody aided with my chair. Nobody inquired about my ease. James arrived bearing ornate, hefty cartes in French script. I flipped mine open and feigned confusion. Margaret observed. Need assistance with that? She queried, her grin failing to warm her gaze. Yes, if you would. These terms are foreign to me. My reply emerged meek, hesitant. She exhaled and selected for me. Something basic, she directed. Not too extravagant. We shouldn't splurge. The remark lingered. Richard assented. Daniel averted his eyes. Emily fiddled with her serviette. Silence reigned. And I merely observed. Margaret initiated chatter. Light topics, their international trek, the exhausting voyage, the contrasts here. Then she slyly shifted to finances. She cited their lavish inn, $1,000 nightly. The premium vehicle leased, naturally. The boutiques browsed. We picked up some items. Not extravagant, merely a few grand. She spoke, eyeing me awaiting awe, expecting envy. I simply bobbed my head. How wonderful, I uttered. Indeed, she pressed on. You see, Helen, we've always managed funds wisely. Labored diligently. Invested shrewdly. Now we hold estates in 3 nations. Richard runs substantial enterprises, and I handle our portfolios. She beamed with arrogance. And you, what's your line of work? Her inflection sugary yet biting. Office duties, I answered, dropping my stare. A mix of tasks. Documents, sorting routine stuff. Margaret swapped a glance with Richard. Oh, administrative roles. That's respectable. Honest labor. Every occupation has value, yes? Absolutely, I concurred. The dishes came, vast platters with minuscule servings, adorned like masterpieces. Margaret sliced her beef meticulously. This runs $80, she noted. But quality justifies the expense. Can't settle for subpar, correct? I agreed. You're spot on. Daniel attempted a topic switch, discussing his career and initiatives. Margaret cut in. Dear, does your mom reside solo? Daniel confirmed. Yes, a tiny flat. Margaret eyed me with mock sympathy. Must be tough, huh? Solo at your stage without ample aid? Does your pay suffice? I sensed the snare tightening. Barely, I murmured. But I cope. Cut corners. Don't require excess. Margaret exhaled theatrically. Oh, Helen, you're so resilient. I truly respect lone fighters like you. Though naturally, we all aim to provide our kids better, to elevate their lives. But alas, we offer what we possess. There lay the veiled yet lethal jab. She implied I'd fallen short for my son, hadn't supplied adequately, was an inadequate parent. Emily stared at her dish. Daniel gripped his hands beneath the table, and I merely grinned. Yes, correct. We contribute as able. Margaret proceeded. We ensured Emily got the finest. Elite academies, global trips for tongues mastered. Now she holds a top position, pulls in handsome sums. Upon wedding Daniel, we assisted generously. Funded the home deposit. Covered their getaway. It's our nature. We champion our offspring. She fixed me with a stare. And you, could you aid Daniel much at their union? The query dangled like a blade. Not greatly, I admitted. A modest token. Margaret smirked. How charming. Gestures matter, yes? The sum's irrelevant. Intent counts. At that point, fury ignited inside, cool, restrained like a frozen stream. I inhaled steadily, held the bashful smile, and permitted Margaret to ramble, for that's what such folks do. They prattle, puff up, flaunt, and in doing so, they bear their voids. Margaret sipped her costly crimson vintage, twirling the stem like a connoisseur. This hails from a rare French locale. $200 per vessel, but connoisseurs spare no cost. Do you partake in wine, Helen? Rarely, for milestones, I said. Typically the budget variety. I'm no expert. Margaret grinned patronizingly. No fret. Not all develop refined tastes. That stems from journeys, learning, refinement. Richard and I toured estates across Europe, South America, California. We're aficionados. Richard concurred. A pastime we cherish. Emily's picking it up. She got our flair. He gazed at Emily fondly. Emily mustered a faint grin. Thanks, Mom. Margaret pivoted to me. And you, Helen, any pastimes? Pleasures in downtime? I hunched. TV viewing, meal prep, park strolls, basic joys. Margaret and Richard shared a weighted glance, brimming with unspoken critique. Delightful, Margaret uttered. Humble pursuits charm too. Though we all yearn for more, eh? To explore, savor novelties, enrich the mind. But I get not all access that. I assented. True. Not all do. James brought sweets, dainty creations resembling sculptures. Margaret chose the priciest. $30 for a morsel-sized pastry. Divine, she declared post-bite. Features edible gold flecks. Notice those shimmers? Elite Spot's hallmark. I savored mine, plainer, thriftier. Quietly, Margaret went on. Helen, I believe we should address a family matter now, united here. She straightened, her demeanor turning grave, artificially nurturing. Daniel's our kin by marriage, and we adore him. Emily cherishes him, and we honor that, but as guardians, we seek her utmost. Daniel stiffened. Mom, perhaps not now. Margaret lifted a palm. Allow me, dear. Vital. She faced me. Helen, I know you gave your all for Daniel. Raising him single-handedly was tough, and I commend you. But Daniel's in a fresh chapter. Wedded. With duties and Emily, and he merits security. Security? I queried gently. Yes, Margaret affirmed. Monetary, heartfelt steadiness. We've aided much and will persist. But we feel it's key Daniel avoids extra loads. Her intent plain, labeling me a drag. Me, his mom. Emily eyed her plate, wishing invisibility. Daniel's jaw tightened. Loads? I echoed. Margaret sighed. No offense, Helen, but at your years solo on scant earnings, it's expected Daniel frets, senses duty to support you. That's noble. He's dutiful. But we hate that stress straining his union. Comprehend? Utterly, I said. Margaret beamed. Pleased you grasp. Hence our chat. Richard and I pondered an option. She halted for effect. We might assist you monetarily, offer a minor monthly stipend, enabling easier living sans Daniel's heavy concern. Naturally, it'd be humble. We couldn't perform wonders, but it would serve as assistance. I stayed quiet, observing her, biding my time. She pressed on. And in return, we'd simply request that you honor Daniel and Emily's boundaries, not reach out as often, avoid burdening them, and allow them the room to forge their path together without meddling. How does that strike you? There it was, the payoff masked as kindness. They aimed to purchase my absence, to compensate me for fading from my son's world, so I wouldn't tarnish their cherished daughter with my supposed hardship. Daniel erupted. Mom, stop this. You don't need to. Margaret cut him off. Daniel, settle down. We're discussing as grown-ups. Your mother gets it, yes? I folded my napkin, dabbed my mouth unhurriedly, sipped water, and allowed the quiet to thicken. All eyes fixed on me, Margaret with anticipation, Richard with haughtiness, Emily with mortification, Daniel with anguish. Then I responded. My tone shifted. No longer meek. No longer diminished. It rang steady, precise, and chilled. Quite a proposal, Margaret. Genuinely magnanimous of you. Margaret grinned triumphantly. Pleased you recognize it. I inclined my head. Yet I have some clarifications to seek, just for full grasp. Margaret faltered. Certainly, inquire freely. I edged forward a bit. Precisely how much for this humble monthly sum? Margaret paused. Well, around $500, perhaps $700 at most. I acknowledged. Understood. $700 monthly to vanish from my son's existence. Margaret scowled. I wouldn't frame it so, but essentially, yes. That's precisely your framing, I countered. She fidgeted in her seat. Helen, no misconceptions here. We merely wish to aid. Naturally, I echoed aid. What about the home deposit support? How substantial? Margaret beamed with pride. $40,000. Precisely $40,000. Oh, $40,000. Such benevolence. And the getaway? $15,000, Margaret added. A 3-week European jaunt. Astonishing. Truly remarkable, I noted. You've poured roughly $55,000 into Daniel and Emily. Margaret beamed. Indeed, love for offspring knows no bounds. I dipped my head gradually. Spot on. Love spares nothing. But enlighten me, Margaret. All those funds, that outlay, did it secure anything? Margaret blinked, puzzled. Such as? Did it earn esteem? I elaborated. Did it foster genuine affection, or merely compliance? The mood altered. Margaret's grin faded. Pardon? My voice honed keener. You've dominated the evening with finances, costs, expenditures, possessions. Yet not once did you inquire about my well-being, my joy, my pains, my solitude. You've solely appraised my value, deeming me worth $700 monthly. Margaret blanched. I never. Yes, I interjected. Precisely that. From my entry, you've gauged me by your purse. And here's my insight, Margaret. Those fixated on wealth grasp its essence least. Richard stepped in. You're twisting my wife's aims. I met his stare. And her aims? To patronize me? To demean me all meal? To dole out scraps so I'd evaporate? Richard parted his lips, mute. Daniel paled. Mom, enough. I faced him. No, Daniel, I've silenced too long. I set the napkin aside, reclined in my chair. No more cowering in my stance. No more diminishment. I locked eyes with Margaret. She met mine briefly, then averted, uneasy. The dynamic had flipped, and she sensed it. All did. Margaret, you mentioned something intriguing earlier. Admiring lone battlers, the courageous ones. Margaret assented warily. Indeed. So permit a query. Have you battled solo? Labored sans your spouse's shield? Erected anything bare-handed, minus family fortune? Margaret stuttered. I've accomplished plenty. Such as? I probed sincerely. Share. Margaret smoothed her locks. I direct our holdings. Supervise estates. Guide key choices in our ventures. I concurred. Ventures your husband founded, estates jointly acquired, holdings from his earnings. Or mistaken? Richard interjected, irked. Unjust. My wife toils equally. Undoubtedly, I soothed. Her efforts real. Yet distinction lies between stewarding existing riches and forging them anew. Between administering a legacy realm and constructing it stone by stone, agree? Margaret pursed her lips. Unsure your point, Helen. Permit clarification, I stated. For decades past, at 23, I served as a clerk in a tiny firm. Scraped by on bare minimum. Dwelled in a leased nook. Consumed bargain fare. Utterly isolated. Daniel gaped. I'd spared him these depths. I proceeded. Then pregnancy struck. The father vanished. Kin disowned me. Choice, persist or surrender. I persisted. Labored till delivery eve. Resumed post-birth in fortnight. Neighbor minded him days. 12-hour shifts endured. I halted, sipped water. Silence held. I wasn't stagnant as clerk. Night studies. Classes seized. Mastered English via library tomes. Grasped bookkeeping, economics, oversight. Self-taught mastery. All solo. While nurturing a boy unaided. While covering shelter, sustenance, remedies, garb. Margaret fixated on her dish. Her superiority eroded. And outcomes, Margaret? Ascent gradual. Clerk to aide to overseer, overseer to chief, chief to executive. 2 decades spanned. 2 decades relentless toil, unimaginable forfeits. Yet achieved. And current earnings? I queried. Margaret negated. $40,000 monthly. Quietude absolute, as if reality halted. Daniel's utensil clattered. Emily's gaze bulged. Richard furrowed skeptically. Margaret petrified, lips ajar. $40,000, I reiterated, monthly nigh 2 decades. That's near $10 million career gross. Excluding ventures, incentives, equities. Margaret fluttered lids. Impossible. You claim $40,000 monthly? Affirmative, I composed. Operations head for global entity. Oversee 5 nations. Handle vast multimillion budgets. Shape fates for over 10,000 staff. Ink packs needing legal scrutiny. Daily. Daniel Ashen. Mom, why conceal? I regarded him warmly. Unnecessary knowledge, dear. I desired your growth prizing toil over treasure. To form character, not successor. Wealth taints, I'd shield you. But why the modest flat? Emily murmured. Plain attire? No opulent ride? I grinned. No compulsion to dazzle. Genuine riches conceal. Abundance teaches minimal proof needed. I eyed Margaret. Hence tonight's guise. Feigned destitution. Portrayed penniless innocence. To gauge treatment sans assets. To unveil authentic hues. And oh, Margaret unveiled vividly. Margaret flushed, embarrassment, fury, abasement. Absurd. Such earnings we'd know. Daniel would. Because I permitted, I explained. Job unspoken. Life unadorned. Earnings invested. Hoarded. Amplified. not squandered on baubles or ostentatious feasts. Richard coughed. Still, rudeness persists. You misconstrued us. Truly? I pinned him. Misread labeling me Daniel's weight? Misread $700 to exile me? Misread each patronizing jab at my garb role. Existence? Richard silent. Margaret too. I rose. Gazes followed. Hear what evaded you. Funds don't procure grace. Nor true cultivation. Nor compassion. Riches abound, yet void of essence. Margaret surged and raged. And you possess? You who fabricated, misled, ridiculed us. I didn't ridicule, I chilled. You self-inflicted. I merely staged revelation, and you performed splendidly. Emily's eyes brimmed. Mother-in-law unaware. I know, I halted. Unaware. But your kin acted deliberately. Savored my debasement till learning the scorned outwealths them, now adrift. Margaret quivered. No authority. Every authority, I asserted. As kin's mother. Deserving regard. Not for fortune, not position, but humanity. Overlooked all meal. Daniel rose. Mom, depart. I eyed him. Not concluded, dear. I faced Margaret finally. You proffered $700 monthly aid. Counter. $1 million now. Prove selfless kindness to the assetless. Margaret gaped, sealed, voiceless. Precisely, I said. Incapable, for worth equates bankrolls. Our divide. I forged riches, you deplete. I merited esteem, you transact. I hold honor. You ledgers. I retrieved my worn satchel. Extracted platinum black card. Tossed before Margaret. Corporate issue. Boundless credit. Settle meal, lavish gratuity. From a destitute innocent. Margaret eyed it venomously. Sleek black, etched silver. Helen Collins, operations chief. Her grasp quaked, lifting it. Inspected, then me. Superiority vanished, replaced by unforeseen dread. Unwanted, your funds, voice fractured. Aware, I said. Nor craved your condescension. Yet you lavished it meal long. Accept as etiquette nod, lacking despite European sojourns. Richard tapped table softly. Cease. Unruly. You slight us. Regard. I echoed. Curious invocation now. Were yours when wife probed my wages' adequacy. When deeming me son's drag. When bribing my exit. Richard tensed jaw. Margaret sought aid. I amended. Sought dominance. To purge daughter's flawless facade of impoverished kin. Targeted wrong element. I turned to Emily. Head lowered. Palms clasped, shaking. Emily, I gentled. She lifted. Tears cascaded. Apologies, she breathed. So remorseful. Parents don't conclude, I interposed. For you knew. Perhaps not my wealth, but their demeanor. How they demean the lesser, and you stayed passive. Emily wept. Intended intervention, but kin. Understood, I said. And Daniel's mine. We ought to draw lessons from them. I grinned widely. You're absolutely correct. I could instruct a few folks I know. She chuckled. Oh dear, at my stage, I don't offer lessons. I merely watch and pass on observations. But folks seldom heed. They're preoccupied with chasing, acquiring, rivaling, overlooking that ultimately, we all reach the identical end. Rich or penniless, adorned or bare, landed or not, we dissolve into earth. How profound, I remarked. How factual, she amended. I've endured 82 years. Witnessed everything. And I'll share this. The unhappiest souls I encountered possessed the most, yet it sufficed never. They craved endlessly, competed perpetually, compared incessantly, and perished sans genuine living, sans profound loving, sans authentic being. Her insight struck profoundly, as though voicing my unspoken truths. Gratitude I expressed for imparting that. She tapped my palm. My pleasure, dear. And recall, possessions matter not. Treatment of others endures. That persists. That's the sole legacy of value. She rose gradually, stowed her vacant sack, and bid adieu. Enjoy a lovely Sunday. Likewise, I answered. I observed her depart. A petite lady, stooped by years, in dated garb and tattered footwear, yet wiser than all Margaret's and Richard's worldwide combined. And I sensed appreciation. Thankful for that meeting, that nudge, that potent verity. I lingered on the seat a while, pondering, sensing, absorbing all occurrences, and reached a verdict. No remorse lingered. No utterance, no deed. For last evening's actions proved essential. Emancipating. Sincere. And sincerity, though painful, remains the proper route. 3 days elapsed ere Emily rapped at my entrance. 3 days of quiet, digestion, contemplation. Upon the chime that Wednesday midday, I sensed her identity. I unlatched, There she stood, barefaced, locks in a basic knot, clad in denim and a plain blouse, sans gems, sans stilettos. She appeared exposed, authentic, unlike the restaurant figure. "Mother-in-law," she murmured softly. "Might I enter?" I yielded passage. "Proceed." She stepped tentatively, surveying, appraising my flat anew. The modest parlor, aged furnishings, undecorated walls. She perched on the couch as I gestured. I settled opposite, patient, permitting her to muster phrases. "Unsure of commencement," she uttered at last. "Begin wherever prepared," I suggested. She inhaled profoundly. "I've arrived to atone, yet beyond mere phrases. To elucidate my parents' nature and my prolonged muteness." I attended wordlessly. Emily proceeded, tone quivering. "My folks arose destitute in a remote overseas hamlet, sans power, sans plumbing, toiling fields from youth. They beheld their kin perish prematurely from medicine scarcity, fund dearth. They starved, endured, and vowed eternal escape from want. They'd strive relentlessly." I assented. "Comprehensible. Illuminates much. They labored fiercely," Emily resumed. "Hoarded, each cent migrated for prospects. Richard erected his enterprise from nil. Utterly from nil. And upon wealth accrual, they retained poverty's sting. Hence their fixation. Hence their metric of all via that lens. To them, wealth signifies endurance. Assurance. Aversion to that abyss. Reasonable, I noted. Scars warp folks oddly." Emily concurred. "Yet inexcusable their conduct toward you. Aware. And know I perceived all. Each remark, each glance, each slight. And I muted as lifelong habit. Muted, yielding, permitting dominance since they ingrained opposition as disloyalty. As ingratitude. And presently?" I queried. "Presently I grasp my error," she affirmed. "Affection isn't dominance. Kinship isn't servility. That I can cherish them yet dissent. Daniel aided me in recognizing it. You aided me in recognizing it. That evening at the eatery, when you unveiled your true self, when you laid everything bare to them, it felt like a veil lifted from my vision." Emily dried her eyes. "I'd always sensed an issue. I'd always believed their method of assessing folks was flawed, but I persuaded myself it was my fault, that I overreacted, that I failed to grasp reality. Yet you demonstrated otherwise, that there's an alternative path to existence. One where finances don't dictate your value, where modesty equals might, where genuineness equals fortune." I took a drink of water. "Emily, my intent that night wasn't to transform you. It was self-defense, to discern my counterparts." "I realize," she answered. "And I'm grateful, because your raw candor rescued me. It prevented me from mirroring my mom, from continuing that pattern, from instilling in my kids-to-be that worth stems from possessions. I reject that. I refuse to embody it. And your folks?" I inquired. "How have they fared since?" Emily exhaled deeply. Enraged, wounded, shamed. "Margaret hasn't contacted me in 3 days. Richard texted that I'd let him down, that I'd favored outsiders over kin. That regret awaited me." She halted. "And oddly, no remorse here. Just liberation." "That's positive," I remarked. "It signals a wise choice." Emily agreed. "Daniel and I established limits. We informed them they're welcome in our world, but solely if they honor us. Honor our choices. Cease manipulating via funds or guilt trips. And if incapable, they'll face a remote bond." "Their reaction?" I asked. "Poorly," Emily stated. "Margaret labeled us thankless, claimed they'd forfeited all for me. Richard vowed to exclude me from inheritance, halt all monetary help, as though that's our sole concern, as if our affection hinged on their wealth. That's when it dawned. They truly equate their significance to their finances." "It's tragic," I observed. "Profoundly tragic," Emily concurred. "They possess abundance yet savor none. They hoard, rival, flaunt, but never pause to ponder their joy, their serenity, their authentic bonds. They tally assets and claim triumph while hollow within." She quieted briefly, then met my gaze squarely. "Mother-in-law, I'd like to request something." "Speak it." "I wish to absorb from you. Guide me in existing with honor, in being affluent sans display, in finding calm amid turmoil, in wielding strength sans harshness. For that night, I witnessed in you what eluded my parents. I saw elegance. I saw authentic authority. I saw a lady who commanded attention sans volume." I grinned warmly. "Emily, that's unteachable by me. It's gained through experience, errors, tumbles, rises. I can merely recount my journey and note the road's challenges. You'll encounter disapproval, scrutiny, folks baffled by your divergence. But fidelity to self, alignment with principles, yields tranquility. And that tranquility surpasses any fortune. I'll attempt it, Emily declared. I'll improve, not solely for Daniel, but myself, as I merit life sans relentless strain, sans compulsion to dazzle, sans dread of inadequacy. Then proceed, I urged. Gradually, though. Begin by scrutinizing routines, acquisitions, drives. Query per choice, for self or spectators. Yields peace or facade. Emily assented, noting inwardly. And my parents, will they evolve? I regarded her candidly. Uncertain. Evolution demands acknowledging flaws, and they deny theirs. They fault the universe. Deem others unappreciative, themselves wronged. Sans insight, transformation stalls. But you can evolve. You can shatter the loop. I shall, she vowed with Daniel's aid. And ideally your wisdom too. No need for my wisdom, I countered. Just heed your inner guide. That intuition discerning right from wrong. The one muted years to appease your folks. Attend it. Rely on it. Pursue it. Emily brushed off final tears. Gratitude, mother-in-law, for all. Your forbearance, your frankness, your persistence with us. No thanks required, I stated. Merely vow one thing. With offspring, instill human worth over cost. Instill compassion, modesty, benevolence. Priceless traits of infinite value. I vow, Emily affirmed resolutely. With full sincerity. We embraced. A sincere, warm clasp. No pretense, no veils, merely two souls linking as equals. Emily departed an hour on, buoyed, unburdened, eyes aglow with optimism. I shut the door, resettled on my couch, surveyed my unpretentious home, and grinned, for this sufficed. This encompassed all. A truthful haven, a sincere existence, true ties. Excess unnecessary. Never was. My device chimed. A note from Daniel. Mom, Emily shared about her call. Thanks for receiving her, hearing her, offering opportunity. I adore you beyond expression. I responded plainly. Adore you likewise, dear. Eternally. I set it down, perched by the pane. Observed the dusk hue, the heavens tangerine and rose. And then I grasped a core truth. Genuine affluence isn't possession quantity. It's savoring holdings, inner calm, sincere companions, mirror gaze pride. Margaret and Richard boasted millions. Yet I held this serenity, this veracity, this unadulterated affection for my son, rendering me boundlessly wealthier. I ceased feigning poverty. Unneeded. I'd absorbed essentials. Witnessed necessities, freed requisites. Margaret and Richard persisted as is, monetarily opulent, spiritually barren. But irrelevant to me. I'd voiced my reality, defined my limits, safeguarded my calm. And for ages first, no masquerade required. I was merely Helen, mother, leader, female, endurer, warrior, affluent in every vital aspect. And that exceeded sufficiency. It was totality. Enjoyed the tale? From which town do you tune in? Share in remarks. If it resonated, back me with a super thanks to sustain such narratives. Immense thanks for your kind backing. Eager for your thoughts on the tale. Displayed are 2 fresh life tales I endorse heartily. Abundant more on my feed. Remember to join. Till the next life tale, with warmth and esteem.